I am Dan Phipps. I'm CEO of Red River Foods, and I believe this is our first ever pine nut panel where we haven't been shared with peanuts or Brazil nuts or other items. So very thankful to have this opportunity to speak to you all today about pine nut industry and markets, and thank you to Ricardo for going a little bit quicker there and giving us our full allotment of time. We appreciate it. Since we are here in beautiful, sunny South Florida, I'm not sure if everybody's aware we're not too far away from a beautiful resort down in Mar-a-Lago, which happens to be owned by President Donald Trump. So I did make a call out to Mr. Trump to see if he could join us on this panel discussion this afternoon to explain to us exactly how he's going to get China to pay for the tariffs, the billions of dollars worth of tariffs that have been implemented over the last year. Unfortunately, he declined. I believe he's playing golf. I'm hopeful he's playing golf with President Xi, and they're hammering out the final details to resolve this trade war and get us back on track. I'm also hopeful that potentially Madam Chen, who's sitting to my left here, who works with the Chamber of Commerce, potentially maybe she brought a check with her for maybe $25 to $50 million, which would cover the increased tariff on pine nuts that is being proposed for June. So Madam Chen, do you happen to have a check from the Chinese government to cover the tariffs? No, didn't think so. Skeptical but hopeful. Despite the challenges that our politicians continue to place on us, I'm very grateful that we're able to come together as global business leaders and discuss the industries and the markets and work together to continue to provide consumers around the world with high quality, good, safe food, including pine nuts. And thankful to the INC for providing us with this forum. I'm also grateful to be joined on the stage today with our esteemed panel. Joining me, as I mentioned before, is Madam Chen Ying, who works with the China Chamber of Commerce. Been with the Chamber for, I think, over 10 years and is the Director of Oils and Cereals for the Chamber. Sitting next to her is Madam Emma Yao, yes, who is the General Manager of Jonathan Pine Nut Foods. She's been in the pine nut industry for several years, and she works alongside her father in Mexico, which is one of the main growing areas and main producing areas of pine nuts in China. We're very fortunate to have her here with us today. And then sitting to her left is Senor Alberto Gonzalez, who is the General Manager of Pinfrus, based out of Spain. Mr. Gonzalez will speak to us today about EU production and consumer trends. So we've got a great panel here today. Just to go through the agenda quickly, we will discuss, Ms. Yao will come up and discuss the 2018 pine nut production and consumption figures. She'll then talk a little bit about the best guess forecast for 2019-2020. As I mentioned, she just arrived from Mexico, the main growing area, so we've got some very up-to-date numbers from Ms. Yao. She will then speak a little bit to the China market perspective, not just production, but then consumption as well. We'll then pass it over to Mr. Gonzalez, who will speak to the EU production and consumption. I'll share some thoughts on the US market, and then we'll open up to questions and answers. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Emma Yao to talk about global production numbers in 2018 and 2019.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Emma Yao from Jonathan Pine Nut Food Corporation. I'm from Mexico, Jilin Province, China. It's my great honor to stand here to give all of you the presentation. Today, I hope you can also regard me as the translator of my father, Shou Hai-e, who has been working for pine nuts, working business for almost like 30 years. Okay, now let's turn to the topic. Okay, first let's talk about the major commercial growing areas in the world. First, we can see the stone pine grown areas. We also called it pignolias. It was growing in the Mediterranean areas in the world. It's large. But also we can see in the Pakistan area, it's grown the chigoza pine nuts. It's long, sweet, and also popular. But the growing area among the three parts is the smallest. And the last one is the growing areas. It's the largest part in the world, growing area in the world. It's grown the Spiricon, Korean, and various Chinese pine nuts like Yunnan, Masonia, the Pinos, Koreanesis. and so on. It's the most export areas also in the world. And then next see, oh, sorry. Okay, let's see the next slide. It's the estimate world pine nuts production. First, we can see for the 2019 to 2020, there is no figures in the North Korean column. It is because we are banned to trading business from the UK since the beginning of 2018. And the next one we can see, except from the stocks column in China, all the other productions and the stocks among of the Far East is increasing. Let's see the details. First, you can see from the Russian column. The last year, the stock is only 1,200, but this year it has increased 10 times. Like it's already, we estimate it's going to be 11,500. And also for the crops, it got some decreased about 5,000 millimeter tons. So total supply for this year is going to be 27,500 millimeter tons. And for the North Korean, we only got the stock of last year is going to be the 2,000 millimeter tons. And for the China area, we can see the stocks has decreased a quarter than last year. It's only 7,500 millimeter tons this year, and the crops has increased a lot. It has reached 45,000 millimeter tons this year, and total supply is more than 50,000. It's great crops. Of course, let's see the Afghanistan and Pakistan area. Last year they got a harvest, so this year for the growing cycling, they got small harvest. The crops of this year is only half of last year. So the estimate crop is 3,000 millimeter tons, and the total supplement with the last year's stocks, so it's going to be 4,000 millimeter tons. And let's turn to the Mediterranean area. Except from the Italian decreased, the other countries all show some increase. And for the details, Mr. Tuto will introduce to all of you later. And then we will turn to next slides. The last slides, people, I think all of you can see is for the pine nuts kernels. It's for pine nuts in shell. And so this slide is for the pine nuts kernels. And the fingers show the same trend of the last slides. It's because all the kernels is transferred from the in-shelled, and the transferring rate is a quarter. It's generally speaking, is 500 grams of pine nuts in cells can transfer into the kernels 125 grams. I hope it's clear to all of you. And next, And next one is the import of pine nuts into China of 2018. We can see the largest among is Mongolia. It takes the largest section of the pie chart. But for the Mongolia National Environmental Protection Policy, both semi-finished and finished production is banned to export to the other countries for 3 years since 2018. So last year, it's already the second year of the ban policy. And the next one, you can see the Korean is only 65. The figure is before the ban policy was published, and it's the March of 2018 years, also last year. So this is a figure for the import of pine nuts into China of last year. And I'm going to analyze the China pine nuts export situations of last year, million tons. First is obviously Germany and US ranks the top two of all the countries. They are shared almost 60% of the total export amount. And the Germany is ranks more than 500 million tons than the US amount. Germany ranks the first one. And also, the Netherlands ranks the third places, take almost 10% of the total export amount. And the others like UK, Australia, and the other European countries shares the similar figures, and all of them shares the total amount in the world. And next, this slide is introducing the Chinese pine nuts export situation in the last 10 years. We can see the Europe imports the most production in the world, especially 2017. The figures is obviously it's reached the top figures in this line chart. It's reached almost 10,000 metric tons. The figure is amazing. And that year, it got such a big figure. It's because the Siberian harvest. For a short conclusion from this chart, we can see the Chinese pine nuts is really popular in the world for the past years. And next one is the pine nut kernels production in China for the past years, 2018. We can see the Russian takes the largest one, and also the North Korean one takes the second, and also Chinese one takes the third part. That's it. And the next one is the total Chinese pine nuts export among in the last 10 years. It can be seen that first, it was keep increasing during the past 10 years. And second, it still need to pay attention is the year 2017. The figures reached the top, more than 16,000 million tons. Of course, because the harvest of the Siberian last year, that year. And the next is the average price of the Chinese pine nuts. Okay, like all the commercial goods in the world, it was influenced by the relation between supply and demand. And but the pine nuts demands in the world keep increasing, but all the price is influenced by the supply. We can see in 2012, 17, and 18, the price is around $15,000. It is because of the growing harvest of the pine nuts. So the price got some influence. There are also some customers who ask me why the pine nuts got such a big price influence. It's because the pine nuts growing area cannot be controlled by human activities. All the pine nuts corns can only be grown in the far deep forest. Any area if related to the human activity, there will be no corns grown. So So it was grown by the climate, by the area. It cannot be controlled. So it got the harvest year and the semi-harvest year and the recycling area, recycling turn. And next one is the China market perspective. The first one, we are going to introduce the impactful demand trend over the last couple of years. The increasing domestic demand in the recent years for semi-open, the roasted pine nuts, in-shell and kernels. Now, China domestic market consumed over 50% of total supply from China and Russia. The Chinese domestic market has the largest influence on the prices pine nuts from the China, Mongolia, and all the other growing areas in the world. For the application part, first, the roasted in-shell takes up over 80% amount of the Chinese market. And the next one is the kernels in retail packaging. Is really popular nowadays in China. And next one is as an ingredient in the energy bars, candies, and the confectionery items, such like the rice balls for Yuanxiao Festival, and also the moon cake for the Middle Autumn in China. It's really popular festivals in China nowadays. And next one is there has also been research and developed into the new pine nuts applications, such as pine nuts oil, wine, and also the pine nuts powder, which is still in using. And the next one is the effect of the high price on demand. Generally speaking, the high prices will decrease the demand. But last year, the demand over Chinese New Year season was much stronger than ever expected. And we are going to have an outlook about the coming future. First, the kernels invitations of currencies and Siberian pine nuts in China are less than 3,000 metric tons. And the peanuts currencies kernels stock is about 800 to 900 metric tons. New crop of Yunnan will be okay this year, but the other varieties will be really small. The currencies from China and the Russian will be even smaller than the last year, and the prices will remain higher for the whole season of the coming year. We'll be able to predict the exact figures of 2020 crops by the blossom and the pollination after the coming next month, I mean the June of 2019. And for the new crops for shelled pine nuts is more than 30,000 metric tons. And the transferring percentage for the kernels will depend on the needs of domestic market and of course the price of the domestic market. If the sales of domestic market, I mean the open-shelled pine nuts, is really popular in the autumn, the raw materials for the kernels will be really limited.
Yeah.
For the price influence on the Chinese market, the high price leads to the decreased sales in the domestic Chinese market. Like this special year, the high price will lead to the shells will take almost 50% consumption of the coming years. And both the new pine nuts and also the stocks will be consumed up. That's all. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Hey. Thank you very much. Well done. So just a couple key points that I want to underline before handing it over to Senor Gonzalez. Although it may appear that the crops look better this year compared to last year, I want everybody to just keep in mind we're talking about wild crops that are basically in the forest. They're not, commercial agricultural farms that you may see in other items. So they are estimates. They're a best guess. And even if the crop is bigger this year, we have no idea as to which varieties will be larger. Corianthus will have a good year. Siberian It's very hard to say. And then I do think it's important to just note that as we try to determine how the trade war continues with China, we do anticipate that the Chinese will continue to look for replacements of U.S. products. So rather than bringing in almonds or pecans and walnuts from the U.S., they're scouring the earth right now for other products that they can replace those items with, and one of them is pine nuts, not just from China, but from Russia and so on and so forth. So, I think there's a lot of unknowns as to what's going to happen with supply and demand, but I will turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez now to talk to us a little bit more about the EU market, not just on production, but on consumption as well.
Oh, thank you. I'll hold this one. Hello. Regarding the European market perspective, there are less concerns about the pine moth associated problems. We have to thank the Chamber of Commerce and Ms. Chen about the efforts they made. We haven't heard for long about these problems. We have seen an increased demand for varieties smaller like Pinus sibirica, and we have to thank this product to keep the consumption in the shelves, because really there is not much available product of the other types. This is a available product, this is cheaper, and the appearance and the taste is quite substitutive of the rest of the nuts. The major reduction of the Korean kernel imports is also helping. The food safety and quality concerns about this product, that they used to mix product of crops, of varieties, and using unsafe processes, made things hard for the industry till now that it had been substituted by other origins. There had been, of course, a big interest in organic product. From our point of sight in Europe, the Spanish offer cannot offer the strong interest in organic, and we need the Asian product coming. Today, Europe is in big problem because of the availability of product. We have not availability of enough merchandise to fill the market needs. In 2-3 weeks, we will have the next production of sun-dried pine nuts, and we will see how it goes. The price had been to the roof. Today, a price for a Spanish pine kernel or Turkish pine kernels will be in levels of 55 euros, and it will be hard to find available product. This effect of the higher market prices is not affecting the near-term demand. Retailers did cover for the next month, and for 2020, for some origins are not covered. We don't believe that they are covered with Mediterranean types, and we will see what will happen after the next month when the sun-dried crop will come to the market. We don't think it will be a big impact, but unless we'll have availability. The major decrease of the consumption, and that's a real fact, we will see it after all these covered contracts will be finished. Then we think that when the new prices have to be applied in Europe of the Mediterranean product, the consumers will find it and the consumption will decrease. And when the stocks of Asian product will finish in the market, then also it will impact very strongly. This year, there have been very big losses from some importers because of this situation, and we know that some contracts had not been filled by the industry, especially from the production side, and it affected also the increase of prices. In our case in Spain, last February, March, we had a lot of demand from Italian companies, and it was affecting the small crop we had. The small crop in Spain and Italy is being affected a lot because of the pest problems, and we cannot fight with it because we need to fumigate all the fields, and today we don't find a way of fumigating without hurting other kind of insects. For the next crops, we are expecting a better yield. In Portugal this year, the yield of the pine nuts have been about 2.4%. Last crop was about 2%. It means that all the problems that we are getting about this insect, the Lepiglossus, are being over, and we expect that it will be over. Thank you.
Great. I'll take a couple minutes to talk about the U.S. market. It's a pretty simple story. Unfortunately, pine nut demand is not inelastic in the U.S., and we see as prices go up, demand goes down, and we're certainly starting to see the effect of these higher prices in our market currently, as some major retailers have already pulled the product from the shelves or are considering doing so going forward. We have less demand for second half of this year, and we don't have a lot of people looking to cover product into 2020, as not only the high prices and the effective demand takes hold, but also the uncertainty over what will happen with pricing if the tariffs do go through. We've also seen, I think similar to Europe and maybe some other markets, we've seen a race to the bottom as mainly ingredient users look to find anything in the market that is relatively cheap that they can still consider a pine nut. So they're looking for all different types of varieties, and they're making concessions on quality control and food safety in order to cover their needs. But again, the big question will be the tariffs. Pine nut users in the US, everybody from importers to retailers to consumers, were very lucky in gaining exclusion from the first 3 rounds of tariffs that were implemented this year. Unfortunately, pine nuts have made their way back onto the list that the USTR just announced or released last week, and they are proposing a 25% increase on all Chinese pine nuts being imported into the US. That could be implemented in June. As I've talked about, it's an inelastic product. If they do increase the tariff by 25%, we believe that it'll have a devastating and potentially long-term effect on pine nut demand in the U.S. So very hopeful that President Trump and President Xi can get together on the golf course and hammer out the details of that trade war and allow us to keep the tariffs low, because we have been importing and sourcing pine nuts from China for over 4 decades, and we've got great relationships and great partnerships with many pine nut suppliers, and we hope that can continue. With that, I'll turn it over to my friend, Madam Chen, who wants to share a few words before we open it up to questions.
Okay, I would like just speak something at here. Okay, my name is Chen Ying from China Chamber of Commerce. Our Chamber of Commerce belong to the Ministry of Commerce of China. This year, I would remind you about the quality of the pine nuts export. But maybe some people know that China's pine nuts trees is planted, many of the trees planted more than 100 years. And those of the tree has a 5-year cycle. And around this 5-year cycle, there is 1 year is a good crop. Another year is the normal, but the last of the 3 years as a small, or one of the year is the none of it you can get from the pine nut trees. So last year we have a very small crop. So that is why the price of the pine nuts this year is increased so much. Maybe some people remind that 10 years before there are some pine months. These problems. After that, we recommend some exporters to the international market. So this year, the price is so much higher. I remind you to pay attention to the quality. If your exporters, the price is much lower, I should you pay attention to this. Maybe I think you pay attention to the quality, and you could get the name list our Chamber of Commerce recommend to you, or you could get do the business with the high reputation exporters. That is important things I would like to remind you, and also. The policy of the China's government this year export to the outside is not too much change, and that's all. Thanks.
Great. We have 30 seconds. I've got a lot of questions here. I think that's one that's very important to address if we may. We have several questions about the worm damage that occurred last year, not just in China but in Europe as well. And the audience is curious: do we anticipate similar damage to this year's crop, either in China or in Europe? Madam EO?
It's not clear. Oh, it's not clear this year because last year we can see the damage. It's because when we see the corn, it's already damaged by some insects. So the details or the exact information can only be seen after we got the corns from the forest after the July.
I think our time is up.
Yes?
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for allowing us this time to speak to you about the pine nut industry and market. If you have questions for us, we'll all be here at the conference the whole week, and we'll share our email addresses as well. So thank you. Appreciate the time.